Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm just gonna start this video with the honest truth. I feel like everyone who knows me in a book sense knows this. I am known to be a Freida hater. Okay, I'm just gonna admit it here. Let's lay it out on the table. I tend to give Freida McFadden books 3 stars or less, but yet I still find myself always reading her books with every new release. Freida's hold on the book talk community should truly be studied because I don't know what she does, how she does it, or how it works. But every time she releases a book, I feel like I have to read it, yet I know and I'm not a fan of her writing style. Because I have read, this is actually crazy to say, given that I'm a self-proclaimed Freida hater, but I have read 19 Freida McFadden books. That's actually so crazy. There are some authors that I claim to love, but I've only read 1 or 2 of their books. Yet I've read 19 Freida McFadden books. How does that happen? I don't know. I feel like the main thing is her books are very fast-paced, very bingeable and easy to read. And if you do an audiobook, that's even easier. I feel like it's such a brain off type of book that you can really play the audiobook while you're cleaning or cooking or doing whatever, and it just goes by so fast. So for that, I enjoy her books because you definitely get engrossed in the story. But if we're talking about writing style, it definitely misses the mark for me. Nevertheless, like I said, I have read 19 Freida McFadden books. So what we're gonna do today is tier rank them, and I'm gonna be going in the order that I read them first to most recent. So let's just jump right into it. So let's talk about the tier levels that I have before we get into ranking the books. At the very top, these are 5 stars, amazing books. I have Elite, Untouchable, That Girl. These are books that are 5 stars that I feel like she did amazing on. I have no notes, no complaints. In our second tier, we have I Can't Complain. This would be like a 4 star, maybe a 3.5 star. It was good. I'm waiting on you to be great. In level 3, we have I See the Vision. This would be like 2.75 to 3.25 stars, where the plot was there, but the writing lacked, or something in the story just lacked for me, to where I just couldn't give it a 4 star. And I did have a few complaints and notes, but I also didn't hate it. It wasn't the worst book. In the 4th tier, we have My Time Was Disrespected. Because why would you write that? I could have read something else, and that just took me like 6+ hours. In the 5th and final tier, the worst spot of all, we have Straight to Book Jail. Okay, I won't say anything else. I feel like this shouldn't come as a surprise because the first book I feel like most people read by Freida McFadden is The Housemaid. Now, I accidentally somehow ended up reading The Housemaid's Secret, which is book 2, before I read The Housemaid, book 1. I feel like those books are kind of interconnected standalones because it didn't really spoil anything for me at all. In the book, we are following Millie, who is the main character of all the Housemaid series. Millie is a housemaid for a rich couple, and there's just some really eerie things that are going on in the home. She notices that the wife upstairs is just quite strange, and she seems like she needs a little bit of help. Every day that she comes to this couple's penthouse, she notices more weird things that she wants to question, but she also doesn't want to lose her job because she has some secrets that are hidden. And that's all I'm going to say with that. I don't know if it was because it was one of my first books that I read as an adult after getting back into reading, or if it was genuinely good, but from what I remember, I really liked the book. It says on Goodreads that I only gave it a 3 star. Maybe it was a 3.5. I didn't really write in a review, but from what I remember, I think it was about a 3.5 star. I feel like this one wasn't as memorable, but it was still good. So because of that, I'm gonna put it at, I Can't Complain. The next book I read by Freida McFadden was One by One. I don't feel like very many people talk about this book. And again, it could be just because it was one of the first books I read as a new adult reader. But from my memory, I really enjoyed the book. We are following a group of friends who are going on a trip. On the way to this trip, right before they get to their, I believe, a cabin, their car breaks down, and so they have to get to the cabin by foot. We do get a little bit of like drama and tea before this even happens, because a lot of the people in this friend group are paired up, like they're couples, and so of course there's drama with that. And as they are on their journey to get to this cabin, first of all, not only do they get lost, but people start getting knocked off one by one, and we're trying to figure out what is going on. The twist on this for me was pretty jaw-dropping. I did not see it coming, and for that I think I gave it like a 4-star. I feel like if I went back and read it now with the knowledge that I have of books, I know exactly what to look for in a book, and I have different tastes. I don't think it will be a 4-star, but basing it off of what I rated it when I first read it, I feel like I have to put it in I Can't Complain. The next book was Never Lie, and this is a pretty popular book, right behind The Housemaid, I would say, and for a good reason. This is actually one of my top 2 favorite Freida McFadden books. This book had me so engrossed and invested, and I did not want to put it down. This is a huge, I mean, they're all page turners, truly. I do have to give it to Freida. All of her books are page turners, but this one is so good. We are following a couple, yet again, almost all of her books are about couples, but we are following a couple who are looking to buy a home. They are headed to the house to meet up with the realtor so that they can tour the home. There is a snowstorm outside, and they're kind of questioning, should we even go to this, because there's a whole snowstorm blizzard and the roads are unsafe. They go anyway just to get to the house and see that the realtor is not there. She ended up not making it, presumably because of the snowstorm, and they end up not being able to leave. They get snowed in, and so while they're there, they're like, okay, we're just gonna have to spend the night here. But the home is actually the home of a psychiatrist or psychologist, Dr. Hale, and Dr. Hale actually ended up going missing, presumably killed by her boyfriend. So they are uncovering a few secrets while they are at the home. The wife ends up snooping around the home. She comes to the office of the psychiatrist where she would see her patients, and she comes across some audio cassette tapes of the recorded sessions. That's when it gets really good. Being able to read the transcripts and connecting pieces, it's just, this book gets crazy. The husband was so annoying. Honestly, in all Freida books, the husband is so annoying, so prepare yourself for that. So we're just following her as she's putting all of these puzzle pieces into place, and this is such a good read. Honestly, if you don't read any other Freida McFadden books, read this one. Because of that, I don't know if I want to go with Elite Untouchable That Girl or with I Can't Complain. I feel like I would have to reread this book to give it a true ranking for the current me, the present me versus the past me. But based off the past me, I think we're gonna have to go with Elite Untouchable That Girl, which is surprising because I truly thought when starting this video that I wasn't gonna have anything in that tier. But you know what, I'll give it a Never Lie. I'll give it to Never Lie. Based on my tier ranking so far, you wouldn't think I'm a Freida hater. Like, this actually is decent. I feel like it's gonna go downhill from here, so stay tuned. Then I went back to The Housemaid. This is book 1 in the Housemaid series. And in this one, we are following Millie. We meet Millie, and she is, of course, the housemaid for yet another wealthy, affluent couple. This one has been made into a movie very recently, like I think on Christmas of 2025 they released it. I have not yet watched the movie, but I will soon. And this, she is the housemaid slash nanny caretaker. She's everything for this couple. They have a young daughter, and the wife is actually very rude, and Millie also does not get along with her. Millie feels like the husband is kind of pulling her in. He's nicer, he's more caring, and he's trying to make it a little bit easier for her while she's working for them. But the wife, Nina, is just really rude. She ends up treating Millie worse and worse every day. She starts to lie on her. She starts to break things just so that Millie can clean it. That's pretty much just the first part of the book, and then there's just so much more that goes on in the second half that I can't even talk about because I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't read it already. I feel like this is probably everyone's #1 favorite book by Freida McFadden. Again, it is warranted. And you know what, I didn't hate it myself. The only thing is I read The Last Mrs. Parrish before I read this book, and hopefully this isn't a spoiler, but it is very, very similar to that book. So I knew what was going on. Nothing in this book was twisty turny for me. Nothing was crazy. My jaw never dropped because I expected everything that happened in this book. It was like a photocopy. So because of that, I'm gonna have to put it at I See the Vision. If this was the first book I read before I read The Last Mrs. Parrish, I think I would have rated it higher, but because I feel like she was kind of being a little bit of a copycat, I'm gonna have to just put it at I See the Vision. Can y'all hear how loud my laptop is? I'm so sorry. Moving right along, even though I keep saying I'm a Freida hater, I'm a Freida hater. Okay, we get it. But truly, I don't like to knock on authors. Like, this is their job, their passion. They're putting their heart and soul into these books, or at least they should be. And because of that, you know, I try not to disrespect it. Like, this is their art. You know, I try to be as respectful as possible. But with that being said, This next book, I don't understand how people like this book. I think this is where Freida started going downhill for me, because when I read this book and I finished it, I literally closed it and said, well, okay. Like, it was so underwhelming for me. It was just so like outlandish, and it just didn't make sense to me, and the characters were very like unrealistic to the point where I was just like, I feel like one thing that of course makes a good psychological thriller book is the twisty turny aspect of it and the shocking twist that you get at the end. But at the same time, I feel like it needs to be in arm's reach. Like, it needs to be realistic. It needs to be like, okay, I can actually see that happening, wow, but I also didn't expect it. But for Freida's books, it's almost like it's so off the wall that it's like, of course you wouldn't expect it, because what? And some people may be a fan of that, but this is where it started to go downhill for me, and I was like, okay, Freida, these books aren't like, you're just thinking of the most outrageous thing and being like, yeah, that's the ending. Also, I just realized I didn't even tell you guys what book I'm talking about. I am talking about The Inmate by Freida McFadden. I rated this one a 2-star on Goodreads, but I'm pretty sure it's more accurate to say it's about a 1.5 star for me. I genuinely just did not like this book. I wish I had written a review for it so I can remember my thoughts exactly, but it just missed the mark. It just wasn't there for me. We are following a woman named Brooke as she gets a job at a men's maximum security prison. She ends up realizing that one of the men in this prison is actually her ex from high school, and she is the one who ended up putting him in prison. So they have some unfinished business. And the other workers at this prison keep telling her, you don't give out personal information, you don't get close with these inmates, you don't do anything like that, you are just here to be their nurse and to send them back. Well, of course, that's not what Brooke does. She starts talking to Shane more and more. And well, if you want to know the rest, I guess you can read it. But for me, this is going to have to go into My Time Was Disrespected. I can't put it at the bottom tier, but also just know. This next book, I feel like is slightly underhyped. It's a well-known book, but I don't think many people like it because of the contents of this book. And I am talking about The Teacher. This is a bit of a more controversial read, I would say, but it had a few twists in it that I was not expecting, and my jaw definitely dropped, and I was like, oh. If I remember correctly, the writing in this book was better than most of her other books are, but again, this was back in, I want to say like 2024, maybe early 2025 when I read it, so it was a while ago. I don't fully remember, but this is definitely one of my top 2 Freida books as well. Between this one and Never Lie, I don't know which one is number 1 or number 2, but they're both up there. I feel like that's a hot take because most people don't really care for this book. We are following a young girl. We're following a few different people. There's a girl in high school who has this kind of stigma around her that she hooks up with teachers. There's a rumor going around that she ended up getting a teacher fired for having a relationship with them. And now the other perspective that we get is from 2 of her other teachers. One is a man who is her English teacher, and his wife, who is also a teacher, her math teacher, I believe. And so we're getting their perspectives as well. The wife, the math teacher, is not a fan of this young high school girl because of the fact that she got this other teacher fired. She has a little bit of resentment against this high school girl. What is the girl's name? Addie. Okay, sorry. So the high school girl's name is Addie. The wife is Eve. Eve's husband is just a nice guy. He's the fun teacher. Everyone loves him. Everyone thinks he's so hot. And he is giving Addie the benefit of the doubt. He is trying to support her regardless of what his wife says. It definitely has lots of twists and turns. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this one into Elite Untouchable That Girl. Like I said, this one and Never Lie are my top 2, so of course they're going to be ranked together. Moving right along, we have Ward D. This book is about a medical student who has to go work at a psych ward. She has been dreading going to this psych ward because she has some hidden secrets that she doesn't want anyone to know about. Would it be a Freida book if there weren't hidden secrets? Mind you, she's on the night shift, and as the hours tick by, things get more eerie, and she's getting suspicious of something weird going on in the ward. She's locked in, can't figure out a way out, and the staff and patients start disappearing. So now that her worst nightmare is coming true, what is she going to do? How is she going to get out of this? That is what we're following in Ward D. I actually enjoyed this book. It was twisty turny. I think I was surprised with the ending. I can't remember the writing in this necessarily, but I don't think I had very many complaints while reading, and I also did give it a 4-star on Goodreads. So because of that, I am putting it in I can't complain. And for whatever reason, I took a break from Freida for a while after that, but the next book that I read from her was her recent release at the time, and it was The Boyfriend. We are following Sydney, who is going on a dating app to get a boyfriend, obviously, duh, dating app. And she is going through these men who are just not up to par. They're just all like very for whatever reason. They just don't fit the bill for what she's looking for. Then she eventually finds this doctor, this amazing man who she feels like is the perfect boyfriend. And as we're going through the book, she starts to feel like he may not be the man of her dreams after all. I feel like none of this book was very jaw-dropping. I never felt that eerie, suspenseful feeling. Again, I feel like this book kind of fell flat a bit. I did really enjoy it. I remember when I finished the book and I closed it and I was sitting there like, wow, that was great. But after a while, I think that kind of died down and I really had to like sit on the book and let it simmer. And then I realized, you know what? That was mid. Initially, I did give this a 4-star on Goodreads, but I think I would drop it down to a good 3.25 to at least a 3.5 star. I didn't hate it, and if you read that book, I don't think you'll be too disappointed. So I'm gonna put it at I See the Vision. The next book that I read, I don't even know why I read it because I heard so many bad things about it. I was in this Facebook psychological thriller fan group, and they would always talk about The Coworker by Freida McFadden, and they would always talk about how the book is so terrible and so annoying and this and that. And so my curiosity got piqued, and I said, you know what, I want to see for myself what is so bad about this book. And we are basically following 2 coworkers. The main character is kind of passive aggressive with her coworker. She like plays nice, but she's really kind of a mean girl, honestly. And the other coworker named Dawn, I believe, is a bit socially awkward. She's just a bit strange, and none of her coworkers understand her, and she doesn't see that they think that she's like weird. She's just kind of trying to be herself. Anyway, Dawn ends up going missing. Our main character is trying to figure out what happened to her, and then she starts to like feel bad and feel some kind of guilt and feels like she needs to find her. Again, I never got the eerie, suspenseful feeling with this book, and the twist was not jaw-dropping for me. I was like, yeah, duh, didn't we all see that coming? Like, did we not know that was gonna happen? There was a small part of the book that was like a bit of a twist, a bit of a shock, but it was nothing enough for me to boost my rating up from the 2-star that I gave it. And so we're putting it at my time was disrespected. It's not worth your time. Honestly, you can skip it. It talks about turtles in the whole book, so truly, just skip the book. I listened to The Widow's Husband's Secret Lie, which is actually a satirical book, and it is pretty short. I believe it was 150-ish pages. Now, in this book, I couldn't even tell you the full plot, but I do remember the main character's husband died, and it's just some weird things are going on. Okay, I don't remember fully. You can look it up. I'll read it on Goodreads, actually. It says, "My husband is dead. I attended his funeral. I watched his casket be lowered 6 feet into the ground, and then we ate an array of finger sandwiches and deviled eggs and miniature beef Wellingtons that cost more than my first car. My point is, Grant is gone, and so are all his many deep dark secrets, which I never really ever bothered to ask him about. He's never coming back, so why do I still see his face everywhere I go?" That did kind of help me remember more about the book, but again, it's a short book. It is satirical, so keep that in mind. And because of that, you know, I found myself kind of chuckling a little bit while reading the book. I feel like Freida accomplished what she set out to do in this book, and because of that, I'm gonna give it to, you know what, I See the Vision. I definitely can't put in I Can't Complain because it is not that high of a rating, but I don't think my time was disrespected. 1, because it was only 150 pages. 2, I knew it was satire going into it, and 3, it wasn't that bad. Like, I didn't hate it. Let's continue. Then I read The Wife Upstairs by Freida McFadden, and again, hopefully this is not a spoiler. Skip a few seconds if you don't want to hear this, but this is like a copy of Verity. If you've read Verity by Colleen Hoover, if I read this before reading Verity, I think my review would be higher because it really was a twisty-turny book. It definitely keeps you on your toes. I gave it about a 3.5-ish star. But again, because I read Verity first, I don't think I can rate it any higher than that. And so we're going to put it at I See the Vision. And then Freida had another release, The Crash. She is just putting out books and books and books. Is it quality over quantity? Or what are we doing? Anyway, so I read The Crash. I'm gonna speed run through this, okay? This woman is pregnant. She ends up crashing because there is a snowstorm and she is driving out for whatever reason in the snowstorm. She ends up getting in a crash. This mysterious, strange man ends up taking her to his home so that he can take care of her. He has a wife there who is also taking care of her. She used to be a nurse, I believe. This couple is just weird. They won't let her go. She's stuck in their basement and she's on to them. Now, I feel like this book wasn't great, but it also wasn't terrible. Definitely like more towards the bottom of the pyramid, but I don't feel like my time was disrespected with this book. I'm gonna put it at I See the Vision. And then I read The Locked Door by Freida McFadden. This one is just, not gonna lie, I was pretty bored while reading this book. It was just silly to me. Again, this is where it all just goes downhill for Freida for me. Yet again, I say this book was not memorable. I can't tell you anything about the book, so we're gonna pull it up on Goodreads. Some doors are locked for a reason. While 11-year-old Nora Davis was up in her bedroom doing homework, she had no idea her father was killing women in the basement until the day the police arrived at their front door. My camera battery died while I was in the middle of reading. How rude. Okay, decades later, Nora's father is spending his life behind bars, and Nora is a successful surgeon with a quiet, solitary existence. Nobody knows her father was a notorious serial killer, and she intends to keep it that way. Then Nora discovers one of her young female patients has been murdered in the same unique and horrific manner that her father used to kill his victims. Somebody knows who Nora is. Somebody wants to make her take the fall for this unthinkable crime, but she is not a killer like her father. The police can't pin anything on her as long as they don't look in her basement. You know, on Goodreads, I did rate this a 3-star for whatever reason. Can't remember why, but I am going to have to slide this into my time was disrespected, because I could have went without reading it. It didn't offer me anything, and I truly, like, still I can't really remember much of the book, so I'm just gonna put it my time was disrespected, and I can't get that time back, so we're gonna move on. And then we have The Gift by Freida McFadden. I also did this on audiobook. This was a very short story, so I tried to give it grace. But when I tell you guys this, oh my gosh, don't even waste your time. It was only like 50 pages probably, but it was such a waste of time. I'm so sorry to say. That's so rude. But my review on Goodreads literally says, I'm sorry, was this satire? Because what did I just read? Like, it was so insufferable. The main female character was just so, oh my gosh. The husband as well, I was just like, what are y'all even doing? Like, what are we doing right now? And then she cut it. If you can't tell by how I'm reacting to this book, it's going straight to book jail. Like, you leave now. I cannot, like, I would honestly let that book burn in a fire. Like, we can make a bonfire right now if I had that book on hand. I don't, but we're getting down to the last 5 books. Next we have The Tenant. This was also one of her newer releases, and this one was so bad that I didn't even give it a rating on Goodreads. I said, you know what, I don't feel right to give her a 1-star review. I feel like that's rude. I don't want to bring her ratings down like that, so I literally just marked it as read and moved on with my day. I have nothing to say about it. It needs to go straight to book jail as well. Did I read more Freida books after that? I indeed did. We read 4 more after that, so let's continue. Next I read The Intruder. This was again another new release. She's going crazy in 2025. Again, the plot just gets all fuzzy at this point. I feel like all her books kind of start to blend together, but we're following Casey, and she lives in this cabin that she just doesn't feel like is safe, and her landlord is not gonna fix it. There's a storm rolling in. He's like, oh, you'll be fine for the night, deal with it. And she wants to go to a motel, but they're all booked up, and so she ends up staying at the cabin at her home, and things get eerie because she feels like she sees people outside, and she doesn't feel safe because of the storm. She feels like something's gonna happen to her. But then she ends up going out to her shed, and she discovers that there is a young girl hiding in her shed. Not to mention, this young girl is covered in blood, and she won't say why. She won't say where she came from. She's acting very strange, but Casey takes her in her home anyway. So of course the story takes a dark turn. Secrets are getting revealed. I remember the twist and the end of the book being a bit confusing for me. I didn't really understand fully what happened. I had to pause it and be like, okay, wait, let me do my calculations, because I didn't fully understand what was going on. But I still gave it a 3.5 star. I think at this point I started to rate Freida McFadden books a bit differently from how I rate other books. Like, what I'm looking for in other psychological thrillers might be different from what I look for in a Freida McFadden book. But I didn't hate it, so I'm going to put it at I See the Vision. It had potential, still fell a little flat, and was confusing, but I see the vision. I don't want to talk about this one too much because this one annoyed me too. It was The Surrogate Mother. This one is about what it sounds like, about a woman who gets a surrogate. She ends up having the woman who she works with, actually I think she's her assistant, be her surrogate, and things just don't go right, of course. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. This book was, again, not the best. I think I'm gonna put it at my time was disrespected. I didn't hate it. It didn't boil my blood to the point where I feel like it needs to go to book jail, but you know, my time was disrespected. I could have done without. And if you're wondering why I even had the physical copy of it when I didn't like the book, I bought the physical copy before reading it, so oopsie on me. Then we have two more, and these final two are in the Housemaid series. I finally ended up finishing the Housemaid series this year. So first up is The Housemaid is Watching. Again, we're following Millie. She now has 2 kids with her husband Enzo, and they live in this affluent neighborhood. Of course, she's always surrounded by rich people, and her neighbor, one of her neighbors, are just very strange, and then another one of her neighbors is just very bougie. Millie feels like the neighbor kind of looks down on her. She also feels like the neighbor wants her man. She wants Enzo, and so she's kind of watching out the window at all times, like, I'm watching you, girl. She starts to question her own husband throughout the book, which really irritated me because at one point she's like, oh, I know he would never do that to me, blah, blah, blah. And then she's questioning him like, oh, why were you at her house? Why were you working in her backyard? Something that I've noticed is that with Freida books, people are always like, oh, you can never guess the twist, like you'll never see it coming. And it's like, yeah, that's true, but it's because she never gives any hints as to what the twist might be or who done it or anything, because she wants the twist to be so outlandish and so outrageous. It's like you're never going to see it coming because there were no signs leading up to it. Like, I can't give any spoilers for this book, but if you read it and finish it, then you'll probably know what I'm saying. It just was like, how are we supposed to guess that? You didn't say anything about that throughout the whole book. You had our attention over here when we should have been looking that way. I don't know. I'm kind of torn between I see the vision and my time was disrespected. I wish there was a tier in between those two. But since there wasn't, I think I'm going to put it in my time was disrespected. I truly could have went without reading that book. It took me so long to even read that book after finishing book 2 and 1. I don't feel like I ever needed to finish it. I feel like books 1 and 2 were good enough. I think she only made this book and the one we're about to talk about in a minute as a money grab. You know, the Housemaid series ended up getting really big. She got a movie out of it, and she started putting out books because she knew people were going to read it. You know what, props to her. She's making her money. She's sitting on some fat stacks probably. But yeah, you can definitely skip it unless you're just curious to read more about Millie and Enzo's story. So that also ties into this next book, which is a short story, a novella if you will, of The Housemaid, and it is called The Housemaid's Wedding. This is like in between books 2 and 3, and we're basically just following them as they're about to get married, and it is so pointless. I kid you not, so pointless. There was no reason to put this book out. It gave us no information, and so for them, you got to go straight to book jail. Like, you have to actually go straight to book jail for that. Anyway, so those are the 19 books that I read by Miss Freida McFadden. I feel like everyone has such different takes on Freida's books, and because of course reading is subjective, your views might be a lot different from mine. So don't just go based off of what I said. If you want to read any of these books, of course feel free. Obviously, I'm not like, who am I to stop you? But I'm curious, if you have read any of these books and you have different opinions from me, please let me know in the comments. I want to chat all about it. Let me know what your top 2 books are from Freida. I have a feeling that everyone's going to say The Housemaid. But what's your other top book from Freida? This was so fun to make. If you guys want to see more videos like this, let me know. And thank you guys so much for watching until the end of this video. If you're still watching right now, you are literally the GOAT. Thank you very much. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video.